The Relentless War on Masculinity. Sounds like a pretty heavy title and phrase, but today we're going to try and explore how much truth is there actually in this language around a relentless war on masculinity. My guest today is David Maywald, the author of this recently released book, The Relentless War on Masculinity. Pleasure to have you with us today, Dave. Thanks for being here.
Fantastic to be here.
Now, you have written this book with this evocative title. Let's get straight to it. The Relentless War. Is it true? Are you overstating it? What do you mean? Talk to us about this war.
So I'll put it to you that there is a relentless war on masculinity, and it's comprised of a cultural, rhetorical, chemical, legal, and institutional assault on all males.
Okay.
And particularly in this book, I've framed it around the English-speaking countries.
Okay.
So US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand.
So those things that you just listed off, just unpack some of those for us one by one. I know that people listening to this will either resonate wholeheartedly or maybe feel a little pushed away by it. But the reason we're having this conversation is we want people to lean into the consideration and the possibility of, is this really going on? And if so, give me the evidence. Give me the research-based argument around some of those things you've just said.
So it will resonate with some people.
Yep.
Now, consider the cultural and rhetorical aspects.
Yep.
So we've had a denigration of all males of masculinity.
Yes.
We've had a deconstruction of fatherhood.
Yes.
We've had an undermining of all men and boys through the whole of the education system into universities, through media, through government. There's been a lopsidedness, which a lot of people will relate to the idea of double standards.
Yes.
They'll just look at their own lives.
Yep.
And they'll see that ways that the men in their lives are treated in comparison to the way that the women in their lives are treated.
Yes.
There might be even a red pilling aspect to this, that once you're aware of issues like misandry and gamma bias, that when you understand those concepts, you start to see more of them.
Yes.
Because you become aware and then you increase your evidence base from your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. The awareness thing is a big deal, right? Because you are on point when you talk about the fact that culturally this has already been going on for a long time. Sadly, it gets quickly and easily dismissed in certain circles, particularly mainstream media. But if people are willing to take a half a breath and go, okay, let me actually give it due consideration, then you start to observe things going on through that awareness, and you start to observe, hang on, actually, this has got some weight to it. There are some problems going on with the denigration of fatherhood and the attack on men. For those who are not sure what you're referring to there, talk to us for a moment about misandry and gamma bias.
So misandry is a hatred and contempt for all men. It gets projected, it gets sent out through communications, through language, through media, through blanket statements about killing all men, about an acceptability of harm and damage being done to men and boys purely because of their sex and nothing else. And for young men who've experienced this through all of their education, the asymmetric messaging that lifts up girls consistently, that provides opportunities, that has affirmative action for females in comparison to the criticism and the denigration of their innate masculinity, they'll be very aware of this.
Yes.
And I think we see the manifestation of that with the disengagement of young men and pulling back and leaning out instead of leaning in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting observation when you start to realise that there is this narrative going on, which is an oppositional narrative that when people like us sit down and talk about the challenges of men, the needs of men, what's going on for men and masculinity in society, that there's almost an immediate default reactionary stance. And where I see it go sometimes is that to stand up for men in today's world almost invokes a presumption, oh, well, you're anti-female. I had a conversation with some guys recently who started a charity around men's mental health. And they were sharing some of the stories with me off camera and talking about how they've got to deal with some complaints in writing and on the phone from people who say, well, how come your events are only for men? Why aren't they for women? And it's like, because they're for men. And there's this weird inference that goes on that to be pro men's needs therefore means you're anti-female, but the reverse doesn't apply. That to be pro women's needs, well, that doesn't infer anti-men, we're just being pro women. I do encounter it occasionally as well, and so I try to combat it on the channel and in different conversations where I say, my convictions around standing up for men does not infer an anti-female stance at all. In fact, the opposite. I want men to be at their masculine best, because a man at his masculine best is a protector, a provider, and an empowerer of all people, especially women and children. Do you find that this weird little twist of understanding gets into these sort of conversations when people are inferring and assuming pro-man is anti-women?
Well, the insinuation I find a little bit comic, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's gaslighting.
Yes.
I mean, you've got a son and a daughter. I've got a son and a daughter.
Yep.
I love both my children
Correct.
equally.
Yep.
I've been accused of misogyny, which is, it's, to be honest, it's laughable.
Yes.
My wife, my daughter, my mum, my sister, of course I care for them and love them. I want to protect them and provide and empower all of them.
Totally.
But, you know, when my son and daughter were born, it really got me thinking about all of the other children growing up in this environment and how unfair it is on boys to be in a gynocentric education system, facing challenges going out into a workplace that's gynocentric as well.
Totally.
Because essentially they have to work 2 or 5 times as hard just to get as far, you know, as the girls and young women who have been through the same educational systems as them.
Yeah.
One example I'll throw out at you, Scouts took girls 50 years ago.
Yes.
Guides has never taken boys. It's interesting, isn't it? So there's a pretty big double standard there.
Yeah, true.
You know, there was a lot of pressure on Scouts and on boys' schools as well to open up co-ed.
Yes.
Because there's this insinuation that boys and young men together cause problems for society, that it's inherently evil and damaging. Very little pressure for all girls' schools to go the co-ed path. I'll give you another example which relates to our roles as parents. I talk to mothers of sons, and a number of them have reached out to me, some strangers, and said, thank you so much for writing this book. Because you're vocalizing things that have gone unsaid, things I've been thinking and things I've been feeling for so long. But there hasn't really been anyone else out there championing. I love your videos. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
Magnificent Masculinity. I've watched a lot of them. I've been a promoter and an advocate of yours. But we need a lot more men and women of goodwill standing up and speaking the truth.
Absolutely. I love that point that you're drawing out there, because I hear about that and I see that too, where actually there's a lot of mums, wives, sisters, for example, who are also joining the chorus of saying, you know, thank you for the book, thank you for the channel, thank you for your words, because they too are on the receiving end and the ripple effect of the damage to the men they love and care about. And they're watching their own husbands or sons or brothers go through immense amounts of unjust pressures and unbalanced scales. And they want to vocalize the fact that we've got to do something about it. And I think it's really powerful. I want to come back for a moment to this idea of these inferences and presumptions that go on that are sort of lopsided. And I'll get your thought on this. I wonder if this links back to what we were talking about with the misandry around the reason why this stuff goes on is not because there are people out there trying to wage a healthy, civil, evidence-based argument for the sake of us all being better, but actually a lot of it just originates from a premeditated hatred. And so my only way to win, if I'm that person, is to invent labels, smear you with them, so that I can allege some kind of crime against you and bully you into silence. Am I taking it too far, or is there truth to it?
It's pretty close to the truth, I think.
Yeah.
Instead of having a honest, open conversation where we put all of the evidence and the circumstances and the feelings, thoughts onto the table.
Yes.
We've had a situation of gaslighting and bullying and personal attacks.
100%.
which is so corrosive and harmful to relationships and for society. And that doesn't benefit women in the end.
No,
it doesn't benefit children or families.
Absolutely.
It undermines society.
It really does. Yeah, no, you're spot on. I do want to get into the book, not to the extent where we create spoilers and people don't go and buy your book. If you haven't got a hold of David's book yet, why don't you do that? We'll make sure that in the show notes are all the links where you can find it and the links to all of his resource there. It's a great book. I was honoured to be able to put a little comment and a little note in the front supporting your book. But tell us a little bit about the origin story of the book, the why behind it. I mean, I think the title and the topic matter is vital, and you've done a beautiful job. Congratulations on it. But for you personally, what was your why in all of this?
I've been passionate about the education of boys and young men for 30 years.
Okay.
And certainly that was amplified having a son and a daughter, being actively involved in the school, in early learning and so on. And I could see just how many busy men and fathers there were who were taking the burden of providing and protecting and empowering all of the people around them, working full jobs, sometimes 1.5 or 2 jobs, with their own businesses, with their families, not having a lot of time. And I was in a fortunate position of having a number of years where I could do the research, I could go to primary sources, I could go down a lot of rabbit holes, join chat groups, watch videos, expose myself to where the algorithms might take me. And I wanted to synthesize that into something digestible for busy parents, not just for dads, but for mums too.
Right.
Because I know just how hard life is.
Yes.
Me and my wife, we're juggling all the time.
Yep.
And we're trying to keep the balls up. We're trying to do the best thing for both of our children.
Yes.
And we also want to have a positive contribution to our school, our community, and more broadly to society. And one of the things that I thought I could do to add that value was to use my research and analytical skills from a career in investment management, but apply that to some issues that hadn't been explored in the depth and breadth that they really needed to be explored. And I was catching up with mums and dads over coffee, and we were having fantastic conversations, talking about our sons and daughters, aspirations, challenges, talking about the struggle of being working parents. And that really sparked the drive to put 8 or 9 months into gathering the information and putting in a format that I hope will be easily digestible and accretive, value adding for the people who read it.
Absolutely. No, well said. I think it's a brilliant book, actually. I think you've done a fantastic job. One of the things that I love about how you've put it together is you've actually synthesized the conviction-based passions with the evidence-based research. And sometimes we do see writing or, spoken content or various other mediums that lean heavily to one or the other. And I'm not suggesting that that's wrong necessarily, but I think actually it's a difficult task to merge the two, and you've done well. I mean, I would say that I wouldn't regard myself as capable as a researcher as you. I think I lean more heavily to the side of the equation that's passion and conviction and anecdotal and experiential, which is not wrong or less than, but I just think it's a really great package you put together, and particularly for people who want to read something or a title on this subject that allows them to swim in both of those waters. I've found that most people are not confident in that analytical approach because they're not really sure where to start or how to go about it. So when somebody like you puts together a package like this, and you joked before we started recording, it's a nice thin book for those who might need that, but it's also a robust piece of work on the topic. So I think you've done a great job of merging those two worlds.
I'm jealous of your usage of words and your verbal fluency, and Warwick Marsh and others who are natural orators.
Sure.
I think probably I naturally fall to being more of a writer. I like a bit of extra time to put my thoughts down and consider them and make changes and edits along the way. So this space is a bit more intimidating for me.
Yeah, right. Well, you're doing well.
Put myself in that position of being an author, and you're a bit safe there.
Right.
You put the work out, but you've had months or years.
You've had time, yeah.
To distill it and put it in a form of words that you're comfortable with.
Yes.
Just the editing process. You read your own work 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 times. You get, almost every page. It gets boring in the end, and you stop seeing the differences and the flaws.
Yeah.
I'd love to draw more of the narratives, the parables, the inspirational stories. I think that's a key part of reaching a bigger audience and growing the coalition of supporters.
Right. Yes.
Not just for boys and men, but
sure.
the coalition of supporters for healthy society.
Correct. 100%. No, you're spot on. I appreciate your kind words. I think you're probably limiting yourself a little bit there. I actually could see you doing, perhaps an audio podcast where you're talking to other people on these subjects, because you do have that rich research behind you. And as you said, this notion of a coalition of supporters, I actually think it's vital that those who have something to bring what you have got. I talk to a lot of guys who feel like they're capable on the subject, but they don't want to sit in front of a camera. And I understand that, but you don't need to worry about what you're not strong on or perceive that you're not strong on. Just bring what you do have, because we actually need everybody to do the part they can, right? That's pretty vital, isn't it?
So boys, teenage boys, young men, we know there are areas that they're struggling with at the moment and flailing in. There's an obligation on the shoulders of older men like us and grandfathers and others who are established and have more time and judgment and wisdom. There's an obligation on us to lean in. All of the cultural messaging has been step back, get out of the way. You're not necessary.
Yes.
That is false.
Yes.
You are needed.
Yeah.
You matter. Yep. You will make a huge positive contribution, especially to those boys and young men.
Yeah, absolutely.
Step in. There are leadership roles in coaching, in mentoring, in just being a friendly face and someone to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's time for men to get off the back foot and step forward, stand and speak up.
Yeah, totally agree. Well said. To that end, what's your view on where we go in the future, particularly around the cultural architecture of masculinity and its place in the world? Is it sufficient, in your opinion, to believe that as long as we get all those people in the game, then we will head in the right direction? Or do you see other crucial elements as well in order for us to steer this ship back to the happy middle?
One of the things I love about your work is that you've retaken ownership of the language in this space.
Yes.
Men of this age need to step up proactively and craft what masculinity is. It's really complex.
Yes.
It's not a computer program. It's not formulaic.
Yes.
It's about modulation. It's about proactively and reactively engaging with the people in your environment. It's not always strength. It's not always compassion.
True.
There's aspects of responsibility. It's not a logical program. It's judgment. It's learnt over the years. And you say, I believe in this too. Manhood, it's forged and formed.
It is, 100%.
It's not a very prescriptive formula of how you engage with the world. It's learned through trial and error.
Yes.
And as older men, we have to create that space for boys and young men to be able to fail safely and be there with the hand to pick them up when they fall off and when they're in a difficult situation, to be there for them.
Totally.
Not just fathers, but the group of loving elder men that are around them that care for them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great point. I think one of the things that is crucial in the mix, and the way you've phrased it is right, the rescue or the recovery of language that has been hijacked. I know that you're aware of this, but one of the things that I love to do on the channel is to keep on banging that drum around the word masculinity. Even though this is not necessarily popular or always understood, from my perspective, I refuse to allow silence to fill the void when people use the phrase toxic masculinity. Now, as a lover of language, the reason I do that is because I don't believe that the two can be automatically paired on the basis that toxicity in a person is an issue of broken humanity. It's not an issue of gender. We certainly wouldn't get away with coming up with phrases like toxic femininity. That would be yelled down in a short matter of time. But more it's around this idea that masculinity as a word, as a theme, as a definition, as its place in the world, I regard it as already existential before hijackers got their hands on it, which is to say, we need to get back to a place where that word masculinity actually triggers and catalyzes the right definition, which is, protection, provision, empowerment. I get the understanding that there are bad men because there's also bad women because there's bad humans. But this notion of automatically correlating a weakness or a bad trait to an entire gender cohort is so dangerous and destructive. And as we touched on a moment ago, it doesn't even help to further the cause of women who need to be strengthened and looked after. It actually further weakens their cause. So you are right, the rescue of language is important, and I would invite all of my viewers and listeners to be repeating the same stuff, to be getting on this bandwagon, if you like, to say, listen, there is no such thing as toxic masculinity. There are toxic people, male and female, but masculinity needs to be preserved and protected. It needs to be quarantined from lazy adjectives that are just being leveraged for a narrative. True? False? What do you think?
My perception, being almost 50 years old, I've seen how far the culture's shifted.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we've got into a stale, lazy complacency around uplifting females but denigrating males.
Yes.
And asymmetry, a double standard.
Correct.
That's been practiced across so many parts of our societies. It's the water that we swim in.
That's right.
And so we've become used to the temperature of that water. And to change that, to turn that into something constructive, something that's positive sum instead of zero sum, I'm approaching it with a principle base, which I think you do too. And it does spring from my Christian faith, that I don't want to just turn that and reverse it to pro-male, anti-female.
Correct.
I want to start projecting positive messages about masculinity and men and boys and being male.
That's right.
So that there's an equal playing field for our sons and our daughters.
Exactly.
And I've called out men and some women who instead want to cut down who they see as the enemy, whether it's radical feminists or whether it's women who have deep grievances. I don't think that's effective.
No.
I don't think we are going to win this war or overcome this cultural battle by cutting down girls and women. I think we need to do, as you say, empower everyone.
Yes.
And what's missing right now is that desperate need for more positive messaging for boys and teenage boys and young men and older men as well.
Yeah.
Lift them up.
That's right.
They lean into that.
Exactly.
They welcome that. And I think that's a large part of younger men self-selecting and choosing to lean into Christian churches.
Yes.
Because there's an amazing role model there.
That's right.
There's servant leadership, there's responsibility and sacrifice and service to the others around you. And it's got positive stories, messages. It's a welcoming community. It's real life people that you can interact with, people who care about you and welcome you. So I want to see how far that goes in Australia and the Anglo countries. I think it's an incredibly positive social and spiritual dynamic that can do a lot of healing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did a concise and thorough job in the book, actually speaking to that issue of, hey, this is not about trying to boost the men because it's our turn now. You actually spoke very well to that issue of this is actually about the empowerment of all members of society so that we do better together and that we learn how to help one another, not to oppose one another, which I agree with you is a vital part of this whole conversation. The battle of the sexes it used to get labelled as. And some people are still playing that game. And I agree. I don't think it's a helpful game. Well, men need this. Yeah, well, women need this. That thing will just bounce back and forth forevermore, amen, and we probably end up in the same place. And it's one of the reasons why I do believe that the return to correct definitions on masculinity matters, because it plays that part in bringing us together. So for me, experientially, my masculinity is worked out in my marriage, in my parenting, and in my community spaces. So I behave the way I behave and try to be the kind of man I am because of the importance of that definition, that I am there to be a faithful husband. I am there to be a present, encouraging, affirming father. I'm there to be a servant contributor in my community and in the faith spaces that I exist in as well. And I think that's why it's so important for us to keep getting this correct language back in the middle, because I'm certain that if we were to repopulate the world with men who have a love for and a pursuit of genuine, what I call original masculinity, we would massively improve the state of the world just on that front alone. You brought out something really important in your last comment around this idea of the forging of manhood and the role that community has to play in that, and older men and middle-aged men. I do think that's a subject matter that is worthy of us touching on in this conversation today, this idea that, if I shared this from a scriptural bias or precedent, there's a Bible verse that packages it this way. It says, the writer says, I have concern for you. He's writing to a collective community, and he says, I have concern for you because your teachers are many, but your fathers are few. And it was a direct, specific thing related to the comparison of a teacher versus a father, but it was also a broader, sweeping statement to say you don't always need more information. There's actually a moment where what you need is to be brought into a place of belonging where you can learn that your journey is connected to how you see yourself in context with others and what you learn from them, and allowing them to speak into your world, which all flows into the fatherhood and fatherlessness epidemic we're living through. This is another huge factor that we've got to get right, isn't it, if we want to see the balance in our community?
Absolutely. It's one of the most destructive forces in modern societies, fatherlessness.
Absolutely.
But actually, I'd broaden it to a lack of original masculinity, a lack of mature manhood. Don't just see it through the lens of fatherlessness. The social science research on fatherlessness is incredibly compelling.
It's striking, isn't it?
It speaks to almost every area of life and well-being, education, health, future circumstances for children.
Yes.
And as a father, I feel that deeply, emotionally, spiritually, as an obligation to be a father, not just to my children, but to be a father figure in the communities that we're involved in. But think about how gynocentrism and these double standards and biases have pushed men away and out of that public space and onto the back foot. It's not just that fathers have been undermined culturally and legally and institutionally. That huge tragedy of fatherless children and fathers who have been alienated from their own children. The Tin Man, George the Tin Man talks about this. These two groups, the healing comes from bringing them together.
That's right.
And apart from just that more narrow sense of biological fathers, what I feel is a much broader diminution of healthy original masculinity and a lack of appreciation and respect for what men bring to families, to community, to our society. The asymmetry of constantly uplifting females but diminishing males is really harmful, not just emotionally and psychologically. It's spiritually harmful. It's relationally harmful. 100%. It's socially harmful. So I think we should broaden that concept of fatherlessness and the damage that it's done to society to the lack of healthy original masculinity and the broader concept that our children deserve and need to have the love and care of their biological father and their biological mother, that they bring different things. And that's a healthy appreciation of masculinity and femininity in this eternal dance.
Yeah.
The framing that I've got consistently through the book, it's about men and women striving to improve the circumstances for our children, for future generations.
Yes.
It's not about selfish needs
No.
in the here and the now.
That's right.
It's looking forward and externally.
Yeah.
And what's the value that we are creating and distributing across our community? Not just what we're selfishly doing for ourselves financially or economically or in terms of career. More broadly, what's the value we're creating? How are we sharing that?
Yes.
That's the measure of a good man and a good woman.
Yeah, absolutely. And that idea that you're referring to there, that does cut through in your book. That comes through clearly, which is brilliant to read. I want to ask you this. What's perhaps one other revelation or eye-opening thought that people might experience when they read your book? Perhaps something that they wouldn't necessarily have good handles on until they read a book like this.
So my contention is that the Anglo countries had a rough balance of male and female leadership and healthy contribution in about the 1980s.
Okay.
Which is about when men and women were in equal numbers at university.
Yes.
And my contention is that we've moved from androcentrism 100, 200 years ago to now being in a gynocentric society. When I spent the time going back to look at the books and the academic research and the articles from the 1980s, from the 1990s, from the early 2000s, there are a lot of warning flags there.
Right.
You go back to Christine Hoff Sommers' The War Against Boys. That's 25 years ago. The Myth of Male Power from Warren Farrell. That's over 30 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
And there are plenty of other authors, speakers, thought leaders, early 90s, some of them in the 80s, some of them flagging potential dangers in the 1970s when second wave feminism was still a very strong social force. What really struck me was we did not listen to these people. They very clearly articulated the damage that was happening to boys and to men, to relationships, the harm that comes from divorce.
Yes.
It was all there. But we chose to ignore and gloss over and move past. It's all there on the record.
Yes.
Those people, you can look at what they were saying. You can look at the evidence that they were highlighting at that time. So when people say it's too provocative to put the word war in the title, I go back to Christina Hoff Sommers' book, The War Against Boys.
Yes.
Well, in the last 25 years, that war has not diminished.
That's right.
That war has escalated.
Yes, it has. Probably tenfold.
So what I say is disprove me that there is not a war on masculinity.
Yes, exactly.
Because by any number of measures on education, on health, on longevity, on suicide rates, in fact, the Anglo countries have 3 to 4 times the male suicide of female suicide. Outside of those countries, the rate's about 2 times around the world.
Yes.
If you go back to the 1960s and the 1970s, Australia, England and Wales, during that period, often were under 2 times male to female suicide.
Yes.
So we've got 50,000 males killing themselves each year in those 5 countries that I mentioned, the English-speaking countries.
Yep.
That's commensurate with the losses from any war. Prove to me that there is not a war on masculinity.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, absolutely. No, you're spot on. And as we know, the data doesn't tell lies. It doesn't have capacity to tell lies, which sort of speaks again to one of these other generic societal challenges we're having. But it is important that we raise it, this idea that if people want to allege certain viewpoints, or if they want to counter works like this, the burden of proof sits on the alleger. You can't just come out with sweeping, that's rubbish, end of conversation. That's not how this works. Although there is a portion of society, as we know, who would love for the narrative to work that way because then things are easily dismissed. And I really think it's incumbent on people everywhere, especially on this topic, to keep on reasserting here is what the research is saying. Here is the anecdotal evidence, and we will not allow you to just be childishly dismissive, label it so that you can bully it and get rid of it. We're not going to cop that anymore. I think we've come out, David, of an era. Maybe it's post-COVID. I don't want to overly correlate that, but we've definitely come out of an era where I think people were backed into a corner. People were shocked into a state of silence by the sudden emergence of this adversarial style of communicating where if I don't like what you say, I simply invent an unwanted and unhealthy definition around what you're doing so that I can stick a label on you and I can isolate you from societal conversation. That profited for a period of time. And I think people have only now started to realize that they were trapped in that bubble and were afraid to talk and didn't know how to respond. And it's because common sense people wouldn't operate that way. It's what you expect of your 2-year-old, because your 2-year-old goes, I want chocolate purely because I just want it. And this is what we've observed through people who should be more mature, where they've gone, I want this to be the narrative because that's just what I want. And if you disagree, I will throw a tantrum. And I'll do it on social media. I'll do it in mainstream media. I'll do it in workplaces. I'll do it in peer groups. I'll do it at family Christmas lunch if I have to. I'll chuck some form of tantrum in order to get you to close your mouth so that I can have what I just want propagated. It feels to me like the world is waking up to that shroud, thankfully, and starting to actualize themselves again and go, hang on a minute. A lot of these people are just chucking tantrums. That's not how this is supposed to operate. We're meant to be able to converse. And I think it's crucial that people like you, people like me, millions of others do not extract themselves from the war or from the game, but we stay present in the middle, and we actually be dismissive of these lazy labels such as hate speech, which most often in its expression just means it's language we don't like. It's not actually hateful at all because words are words and they're not that capable of hurting people actually, despite what the popular narrative is. It's crucial, isn't it, that people stay engaged and we don't, as a society, slide back into that weird bubble of, oh, wow, they yelled at me. I don't know what to do. What's your take on that?
Thankfully, sensible people are finding a better way.
Yes.
Because a society led by adults having tantrums is a really destructive, dysfunctional society. I don't want to be part of that one anymore. And I think we need to reflect on how parents and schools manage those heightened emotions and extreme pressure from children who clearly are immature and are not in control of the modulation of their emotions. They need time to let those hormones and let that die down so that they can engage respectfully with dignity and with principles. Thankfully, I think, like you've said, there's an appreciation that where we were going was really in the wrong direction,
for sure.
And that we needed to be smarter with the dangers and downsides of technology, which was a exogenous factor that was thrown onto all of us and a lot of children as well through that time period.
Yeah.
But we've had enough time now to reflect on how that works. My strong call is just to not pay attention to the extremes. I've been blocked by a couple of guys who thought I was too moderate and wanted me to be more outspoken or more extreme or more strident. And actually, I take that as a badge of honor that it signals a centrist orientation. I want to see sensible men and women come together in the center and talk openly about their feelings and concerns and aspirations. Share that and come up with some better ways of engaging with each other. We need to provide kids and young people with aspiration and hope. There's far too much nihilism and depression and mental health issues and lack of resilience. We need them to be inspired and look forward to something. And this is the greatest journey of joining together in the covenant of marriage and raising the next generation. It is the greatest adventure.
Yes.
It's not easy. It's hard, but it's the most rewarding
for sure
adventure that you can take in your lives.
Yes.
And I'd love to see more people have a balanced outlook on that.
Yes.
Seeing it as a crucial part of their lives and thinking about how I build my education and career around having a family.
Yeah.
I call myself a father first.
Totally.
And then a board member and then an author and other things.
Yes.
I encourage other fathers to say, I am a father.
That's right.
That's the most important role that I've got, along with being a husband, contributing to your community.
Totally.
And how do we provide that positive environment for kids growing up and young people coming out into the world so that that's what they aspire to do?
Yeah.
It's the greatest journey, the greatest adventure you can ever go on.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to prototype it, don't we? I love the way you've couched that advice that people really just need to get used to ignoring the extremes. I had that conversation with someone yesterday afternoon just talking about this idea that whether you position yourself here, somebody's going to hate it. Position yourself here, somebody's going to hate it. What matters is be true to your true convictions, be able to give an account for your argumental positions, and then hold that line. Of course, stay open-minded, listen, be willing to pivot where necessary, but essentially you do have to ignore those extremes. Otherwise, you'll never do anything. You'll never be productive. You'll never contribute because you'll be so concerned with trying to please everybody, which, as we know, is an impossibility. So, look, congratulations again on the book. It's really, really well written, and I want to encourage people, as I have already, if you haven't got a hold of a copy, click below in the show notes, find those links, go and buy it. It will empower you. It will give you great research without having to do the months of heavy lifting that David has done, and you will arm yourself for good, civil and considered conversation around these topics. So congratulations on it again, David, and thanks for joining me on the show today.
Pleasure to be here with you, Andrew. Thank you.
Awesome. Guys and girls, as you're watching, I'd love to hear from you. So if you've enjoyed this conversation or there's a particular point that you want to reinforce or challenge or ask a question about, why don't you jump in the comments below and do that? I always love to hear from you. Thanks for taking the time, and I'll see you in another video real soon.